somebody actually said to me, "Oh, you've been really lucky to be in business for 20 years." And I was like, yeah, because it fell off a tree. It doesn't fall off a tree, does it? As you guys know, you work at it and you probably think about it 24/7. It's really become quite a bore about it in my own head. I'm like, okay, stop now.
Today we're speaking to Rebecca from Wild Apple Design. Book designer by trade, fine artist at heart, Rebecca talks about how she wants her hobby to become her career and how she's transitioning to do that. Whilst you're here, if you fancy giving this video a little thumbs up, thank you very much, would be really appreciated. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the Digital Circus Live, make sure you do so too. It's really fun here. Without further ado, let's get into our interview with Rebecca. So Rebecca, thank you very much for being here with the Digital Circus Live. I'm very excited to have this conversation, aren't you, Alan?
Oh, always. Well, I'm excited about everyone, if I'm brutally honest, but especially Rebecca.
Especially Rebecca. We start every single episode with the same one question, and it's quite a biggie, so hold on to your hat.
Okay.
What is it that you are trying to achieve right now? And that could be both business or personal.
Okay, well, thank you for inviting me on your lovely podcast. What am I trying to achieve? I don't know. Retire quickly? I think, well, really, the reason that I started to design books, because originally I was a magazine designer, but the whole reason I decided to do books was because I actually like helping people learn. Mm-hmm. So even though I've sort of gone down a slightly different track, the things that I make ultimately help people learn, which I think is quite cool, and I try and keep that in my head when I'm designing things. So that's ultimately work-wise, I'm trying to help people learn. Life-wise, yeah, just retire early and garden lots.
Oh, I love that.
I love that, and I'm fully on board with it. But what I think my takeaway from that is, and I think this is the same with a lot of business owners, is they do want to retire early, financial freedom on your terms, whatever you want to call it, but without the compromise of helping people, which is really bizarre, because in today's society we're fed the narrative that if you want to have financial freedom, you can invest, you can do property, whatever you choose to do. But it feels that there's still quite a stronghold of who want it but actually still want to help people en route and everything else.
Yeah, I think I would miss it, to be fair. As much as I'm joking about being retired and getting on with it and sitting in the garden and drinking tea all day, which won't happen because I would get bored and I'm too twitchy for that. I like doing stuff. I actually genuinely really do like helping people, and making educational books and language books is a great way of expressing that. And design-wise and art-wise, ultimately down the road, personal project, I'd like to be a fine artist. I'm sort of looking up because I've got pictures above my desk. So, but I don't, at the moment, I don't feel I've got enough confidence to launch the sort of fine art career or the illustrated side. But I do that quite a lot in my spare time.
That intrigues me, Rebecca, for you to say you haven't got enough confidence, because I look at everything that you do out there and I think you are literally a force to be reckoned with in everything you do with the book side of things. So what is it that holds you back from the fine, in terms of that confidence? What is that holds you back?
Fine art's a bit different than book design, if I'm honest. Graphics and book design, I've got a lot of experience in that. I know all the pitfalls. Well, we don't know all the pitfalls, which we'll get into that in a minute probably. But I'm very confident in that side of it. But actually putting your fine art out there, it's personal. Yeah. It's personal landscapes or personal still lives or what have you, and that's kind of your sort of a bit of your soul is there on a canvas. And so I'm just not quite there. I'm very nearly there, not quite there. I'm hoping to set up something with a local gallery. Wow. Which is sort of like more of a maker's space than a art space, because I think that's perhaps an easier in, but we'll see.
Now, so I'm intrigued by this whole confidence thing as well. So you've clearly got the confidence to do it because you're doing it. And I don't think we ever knew this. And we've known you for just over a year or so now, which I'm now fascinated by. And I just
gone down a different rabbit hole.
No, this is fun, but this is brilliant. The point. This is what we want to know. And clearly this is important. But now I'm going, well, you've clearly got the confidence to do it. But now it's the confidence to share it, and and I get it's more personal to you, because when you're designing a book, it's the confidence to fulfill a set of requirements, and I find that to a certain extent it's very different talking about how to grow on the internet than it is something that's relevant to me. But also, I also know how easy it is for you to potentially set up an Instagram account or whatever, take a picture and share it. It's done. It's very kind of whip a plaster off. Now, obviously, that's not exhibiting or anything else like that, but it is in its own way. It's the same principle. And probably as easier as the social media route is, there would arguably be more eyes on it than in the local gallery. I don't know. There might be millions in your local gallery. But.
Well, Dorset, I think, has like the highest percentage of artists and fine artists in the country. There's like a massive proportion of people that are out there doing it and selling it and making businesses out of it. Also, my other thing about it is, do I want to make another business out of my hobby? Because then does it still be a hobby, or is that then a business?
Well, that is the big question we ask most entrepreneurs, isn't it? And if you're doing something you love, is it a job? It's completely and utterly down to you and how much you want to express to the world, isn't it? But this is what we had a conversation in a recent episode as well, is that will you ever retire? Probably not, because actually you love what you do and that's part of your day in, day out. So why would you retire from that? I think that, you have that opportunity. We're going into a bit of business coaching here. I love this, but you have that opportunity there to grow it in whatever, because your book design stuff, whether you choose to scale that up, scale that back, is always going to be there, right? So I'm curious.
Just clarifying, you're referring to yourself as a business coach now,
No.
I mean, that's what I took from that.
No,
that's what I took.
No, but it's a bit coachy, isn't it? No, but let's come back to the book design side of it, because
sure.
I'm curious.
No, I want to talk about painting.
Well, it will come back to the painting. So I alluded to the fact that you're a force to be reckoned with in the book design world. Yeah. And what I love about what you do. So how long have you been in the book design space, number one?
Okay. Probably 30 years.
Wow. That's a huge amount of time, and incredible. And A, big round of applause for that. B, so what I appreciate about your business is you're quite happy to say you're a small business, and you're a small bijou team of two of you, isn't there, in your team?
Yeah. But we scale up if we have to, but there's two core.
Yeah. But you play, so to speak, in a very large industry with the likes of Oxford University and all those. So how have you got from your early days of career and to working where you are now with those kind of organisations?
Well, I would say it's probably word of mouth. It's probably reputation, to be fair. I actually started off in magazines. Yeah. I worked in corporate magazines for the like of Coca-Cola, Saab, Association of Teachers and Lecturers, which is very random. I used to organise photo shoots and do things like that. And then I went to work in-house at Oxford University Press, which is actually where I got my grounding, to be fair. I worked there for about 6-7 years. And then I set up Wild Apple Design. So I already had quite a lot of names from Oxford. And I think actually working in-house at a big publisher is what opened more doors, if that makes sense, because you've already got a body of work that is already published by someone of that caliber. Yeah. And then it just sort of spiraled. And I started off with a little iMac, which was 500 quid out of a free ads, I didn't even have a desk. I had a coffee table at home. I had to go and buy a desk. And then, I ended up with a barn of 8 people at the maximum. And then I've scaled back to be, I think the perfect number is probably a team of 3 or 4. At the moment, there's 2 of us full time, and then I bring on freelancer. But I think it's just really that early days of working in house and then taking those contacts. But also I worked at it. You walk around with your portfolio, you talk to people, you chat to people, you don't ever stop. That's what I think. Somebody somebody actually said to me, "Oh, you'd be really lucky to be in business for 20 years." And I was like, yeah, because it fell off a tree. It doesn't fall off a tree, does it? As you guys know, you work at it and you probably think about it 24/7. It's really become quite a bore about it in my own head. Like, stop now.
It's the Joe Wicks effect, which we always use as an example, because it's so true. Everyone talks about Joe Wicks's overnight success, and he's like, yeah, that 10 years of grafting for overnight success.
He says being on Richmond Common at 6 a.m. and then no one turning up to the boot camp, so I would go to the underground and flyer all the travellers. It's like he put the graft in, bless him.
And it does take grit to get to that point that people not see.
You're still doing it now, I'm still, to go send out the email that goes into the abyss, and you have, you feel like, oh my goodness, I can't keep doing this, but you just keep going, don't you?
Rebecca, was going freelance always on the agenda?
Sort of, I suppose. I think in-house was quite tricky. I think I got to a point where if I stayed any further, it would have gone into management and not creating, if that makes sense. More ticking boxes, which isn't really me. And I knew it would frustrate me. I did it for a bit, and then I thought, I'm not very happy about this. And also I wanted to come back to the Southwest. And so the only way really of doing that was to create my own space. So that's what I did.
And that creative element is clearly always been there, because you've just told us that, and B, I know, and B, the kind of industry you're in, and now the design. Where is that just in you? Was there a bit of you, when I want to be in creative industries?
Yes, I don't think I had much choice. My mum was an art teacher.
It's in the blood. It's in the blood.
It's in the blood. And my dad is, he's retired now, but he's a civil engineer. So that involves like technical drawing and problem solving. So probably I am completely my mum and dad, if that makes sense. But my mum was very encouraging. Like she used to take me to the Royal Academy for the summer exhibition, and she used to, put things in front of me that perhaps normal teenagers wouldn't have put in front of them for art wise, and get to know books and get to know artists in depth, because she just loved it as well. And I think she wanted to share that love with me, like you do with perhaps your children. And then it kind of just stuck. And then when I was choosing what I wanted to do as a degree, I actually went to Falmouth School of Art, and it was Southwest, not far from home. Just happened to be one of the best art colleges that was on my doorstep. So that's the route I went down. And when I interviewed down at the art college, they said I could go either way. I could either be a graphic designer or a fine artist from looking through my folder. And I actually chose then to do graphics and keep fine art as I suppose a hobby, but it's sort of now a plan B.
And nothing wrong with that as a plan B, though. It sounds incredible. Just rolling back to something you said a couple of minutes ago. So when you first started with Wild Apple and you were in a barn with 8 of you, and you said actually you've scaled that back. I'm curious to know, because we have our own thoughts on smaller teams, actually, what was the catalyst for you scaling back to a smaller team, and why is 2 or 3 a better number for you?
Okay, so economics, really, scaling back. Also, it was very stressful because I'm hopefully a nice boss, and when you take on a staff, you're not just taking on them. You feel like you're taking on their mortgage and their rent and their families, and not that you're. Some people would say, oh, that isn't part of your consideration, but it was part of mine. And the stress of that, to bring in that amount of work was full on. And so we scaled back a bit. I had I had 2 graduates on a graduate scheme, and I didn't continue the graduate scheme with a job. So that's how I kind of lost 2, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then I just sort of mentally made the decision to scale back and let it happen naturally. I didn't move out of our space or anything like that. But 4 is a good number because of the dynamics within a team. I think you've got, as a boss or a figurehead or a leader or whatever terminology you want to use, there's a lot of that going on at the moment. You are a little bit separate from the team, but I also like the closeness of that team, and I also work well when your team are all on the same page, because if they're not, it doesn't work at all. And then I suppose with COVID and everyone working from home, it was very obvious that I didn't really need the space as much. Everyone's much happier working from home, actually. Well, in my experience, maybe that's a creative thing. I think you get better work when people are in a happier headspace. And I don't really, with the guys that I work with, as long as they get the work done on time for my client deadline, I'm not really bothered whether they work at 3 a.m. or 6 o'clock in the morning or wherever they want to work. So yeah, I think 3 or 4 is a good number. At the moment, we're sort of 2 with a third on and off.
Nice. On and off. I think that's great there. So it's something Anne and I have discussed long and hard about what our priorities are for our business. And, we floated back when we first started becoming an agency and having a much wider team than just the 2 of us. And actually, we soon realised, especially after seeing so many other people starting at the same time as us who went down the agency route, and the stresses and strains that come with that actually for our own lifestyle just didn't fit or wasn't a want of ours. And you hit the nail on the head. Staff management is tricky because it takes you away from what, especially as a
kind of detracts from actually doing the business you want to do, doesn't it?
You are a creative and you have joy and fulfillment from being the creative that you are. And then suddenly, and as you said, as you're going up the ranks in a large organisation as well, you're then the paper pusher, you're the staff management, you're HR, all those things that actually don't fire that fuel in your belly, the fire in your belly. And it's difficult. So actually taking that step into actually we're better as 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, I think we are.
I think it's brilliant, and not enough people recognise the benefits from staying as a smaller team, because it's kind of that expectation you would grow.
Yeah, I think I've sort of got there a little bit organically. I have made a conscious decision not to grow back, if I'm honest, because I don't want the stress at the moment. I've probably ever. But I think it is an interesting dynamic. My cousin is a florist, and she said I would have a lovely time if I didn't have clients or staff. She wouldn't have a job.
She wouldn't have anything to do. But
well, I'm like that about retail. So I spent quite a few years in retail, and I absolutely love retail, other than the customers and the hours, and being in a shop actually. So I like to be outside, not seeing daylight. Other than those 3 things, which are all quite key to retail, I blimmin' love retail.
So you're happy. Yeah.
So, Rebecca, you're on your plan, what you're trying to achieve in terms of retiring early, and I get that. And I smiled to myself when you were talking about being in the garden, because Alan's got this notion that everyone over the age of 30...
No, if you're going to deliver, you've got to deliver it right. So I have this theory,
right?
I
won't finish my sentence. Carry on,
No, it's fine. Well, because I know you would have done the Emily version rather than the Alan.
The true version.
No, well, I have this theory that you reach a certain age, right, and you kind of take up gardening. Now, it doesn't mean you don't have a love for the outdoors and everything else. But my theory on gardening, adults and gardening, is basically we all just give up, right? So when you're young, you're going at 100 miles an hour, you're going to the pub, you go to the gym, you go for a run, you're working, whatever you're doing. And at some point, you basically go, I'm really tired. I'm just gonna go into the garden. And then, habits are built on like 30 days or whatever it is. And after a while, you just decide that going in the garden is the easy option.
No, I don't
and
think
it
that
takes
at all.
over. I do.
I
think you're all wrong. I think the whole society is wrong, and I'm right.
Alan, if anyone's watching this or listening to this and is working for a garden centre, Alan would like a garden centre sponsor for the podcast. So tap us up. But no.
Yeah, but because everyone over 30 loves gardening.
This is it. Everyone over the age of 30 loves gardening. I don't think it's that. I think it's the fact that as we get older and are a bit more tired in our bodies,
we give up.
And we don't want to go drinking every single Friday, Saturday, Sunday night and lagering it up.
Isn't that what I just said? I just said it.
So we spend time at home, and then you sit in your garden and you go, oh, that bed could do with a little bit of pruning.
Because you've given up.
And then you start tinkering because you want to be in that space and enjoy that space.
Don't get
more.
caught up on my semantics.
However, I will say that I used to have an allotment. I don't have the allotment anymore. And allotments are hard work. You do not need a gym or go running if you've got an allotment. Digging and dealing with weeds and all sorts. I would slightly disagree with it's a giving up option. I think I like things aesthetically pleasing, which is my nature, I suppose. So I like sitting in nature and in the garden. And so if it's not quite right, then you do start tinkering. So I will give you that.
So I agree, right? So right, hold on. 2 questions. How old were you when you had the allotment?
Mid-20s.
So close to 30, right? So I'm taking
Shut up.
and the other thing is, we love the outdoors and the aesthetically pleasing. I just think when you're younger, when you've not given up, you don't spend as
giving up.
No, I'm just kind of pushing it home now. Like you don't sit in the garden as much, and all of a sudden you, whether it's kids or business or tiredness or bad back or whatever, you end up sitting in the garden more, and then you do more work on it. Fact.
I don't actually sit in my garden. I run around and grow things.
No, fair enough. Fair enough. We like growing things to eat.
That's up on my list as well. I want to have a more sustainable sort of growing lifestyle in our garden. That'll happen.
Because we've given up. Right. Okay.
Getting closer to that sort of, and I think that's also a really good aspiration, and not enough people are happy to say I'm going to retire early, whatever that looks like to you.
I don't know.
I would love to retire.
I think that's why I sometimes think, and once I'm being pedantic, semantic, whatever, but that's why I quite like the financially free on your terms, because retirement's...
Yeah, I think that's what I want, Alan. I think that's more,
Good.
I'm nearly there. Nearly.
Oh, how fantastic.
But what I love
you can
about
tell us about that.
You are happy to put that legwork in as well, because I know at this particular point in time you're an incredibly busy lady, aren't you?
Well, yes, there is a lot going on. It's sort of on and off, but we'll talk about that somewhere else, I probably. We are quite busy, which is good, but that's only because I've, and you guys help with that, to be fair, bringing it back to you.
Oh, thanks.
You help with that confidence of getting us out there in socials. And yes, okay, maybe not, you're not going to be able to track a gig from an Instagram post or a, LinkedIn post or getting your marketing plan correct or anything like that. But it does all help, and it helps add trust, and it helps add professionalism, and the fact that we do know what we're talking about sometimes. No, we do know what we're talking about when it comes to book design, and that's all helped, and that's all fed into the fact of why I'm busy.
Good.
Yeah.
Right, we are going to slowly wrap up, Rebecca, because I could talk about this for another half an hour. He's moving my hands.
Sorry, we were wobbling the desk.
Wobbling a camera.
We were both wobbling the desk.
We have one final question, if that's okay. A bit like how as we start with one question, we finish every single episode with the same question as well. Yep. And that is, Rebecca, that if you could go back to your younger self, maybe 20s in your allotment, or maybe earlier, completely
late 20s, nearly 30s in your allotment.
Not nearly 30s, mid-20s. And you could put an arm around your shoulder and just have a little chat with your former self. What would you say to them about the future?
Don't sunburn your feet. It hurts. Also, don't worry so much. I think a lot of my early days, I was very worried about what people thought, what people thought I was doing. And actually, as you get older, they don't care. They're too busy worrying about themselves. But you don't perhaps realise that you're sort of wrapped up in your own headspace. So perhaps just don't worry so much, and it will all be okay. If you do the work, it'll be okay. If you do the work in whatever you're doing, you'll be okay. Even if you're, postie or gardener or whatever, if you do the work and you talk friendly and you're flexible and all those things that you probably naturally are anyway, just don't worry.
I think that's perfect advice. Now,
Rebecca, don't worry, be happy. There's a name for a song there, isn't there?
I'm looking forward to sometime in the near future coming to visit your fine art gallery. So make that happen, make that dream come true. Rebecca, thank you so very, very much for speaking to us today. Alan, what?
Well, hold on. Just back up a second. Actually, someone we know who lives very close to us, who is a photographer, has just transitioned into an artist and has decided to open up their own studio. So, that if you decide to get the confidence, and I get the whole, do you want your hobby, your passion to be your main income? But I think others are doing it. It could be.
I don't know that I would make as much income as book design. That's also a factor.
Well, ramp up your book design for the next couple of years. Scale that back and do the thing you love. Boom. Anyway, Rebecca, thank you so very much, and we will speak to you all again next time on the Digital Circus Life. See you later.
Thank you very much.
Bye, Rebecca.
Bye.